Hi, this time we will explain the storyline of a film called Pearl, which was released in 2022.
Staying on this farm!
This film tells the story of a girl named Pearl who feels she was special, but always lives under restraint by her parents in the countryside. Gradually, her behavior became increasingly strange and brought disaster to those around her.
I'm married!
Alright, so here's the storyline.
Farm life may be it for you, but it sure ain't for
Somebody please help!
This film began by showing Pearl who lived with her parents in the countryside. One day, Pearl dressed up and wore her mother's old clothes. She then danced alone in the room. Not long after her mother came into the room, when she saw Pearl, her mother was angry and told her to feed the cattle.
Wo hast du das gefunden? Wie du's versprochen hast.
Pearl changed her clothes and upsettably went to the livestock barn. There, she started feeding the cattle while talking to the animals. Pearl felt that she was special, and would one day be famous.
I do love a good audience. One day you'll never see me again. A star.
When a goose came into the barn, Pearl approached it and casually poked it with a fork. The goose died and Pearl took it to the lake behind her house. Pearl then called Theta, a crocodile inhabiting the lake, who immediately came and ate the goose given by Pearl. This film was actually set in 1918. Pearl was married to Howard, but her husband was at war. Howard seemed to really love Pearl. This could be seen from the letters he sent.
They have us true and boy on cue.
Meanwhile, Pearl lived life in mediocre conditions. Her mother always ordered her to do many things and curb Pearl's behavior. Pearl was also ordered to take care of her sick father. He could not speak or move, and was confined to a wheelchair. The next day, Pearl went to town to buy medicine.
2 bits, please.
Her mother ordered her to go straight home, but Pearl took the opportunity to watch a movie at the cinema. She watched a film showing lots of dancing girls. After that, Pearl went to the side of the cinema and looked at the movie posters. There she met the projectionist who was in charge of projecting the film. They had time to talk about Pearl's life.
Father's infirm, so I have.
The projectionist looked friendly and gave Pearl a cigarette and a frame from the film Pearl had just watched. He also invited her to come to his place and watch movies for free, but at that time Pearl refused. He then said that Pearl could come there anytime.
Oh, future Tiller girl. I can see it now. Well, if you come back, knock on this door.
After that, Pearl came home with her bicycle. On the street, the film frames flew in the wind and Pearl rushed down to look for it in the cornfield. There, Pearl instead found a scarecrow. She took down the scarecrow, took it dancing, and played with it.
I'm married!
Pearl's behavior already looked insane. After arriving home, Pearl was immediately ordered by her mother to clean up her father's excrement. When Pearl was alone in the bathroom with her father, she pinched her father's hand and choked him several times.
Trying life it must be to star in the mood.
After that, the three of them got together for dinner. Her mother discussed the missing 8 cents of medicine change. Pearl lied and admitted that she bought candy on the trip, but her mother immediately took Pearl's bowl and forbade her to eat. Pearl left, but her mother told her to sit back down. Pearl was then lectured. After that, she was told to leave.
Gotten some hard candy for the trip home.
Du kannst jetzt gehen.
Pearl went into her room. There she prayed to become a famous star so she could leave her house. The next day, while Pearl was feeding the cattle, her in-laws and sister-in-law came to visit. Her sister-in-law was named Mitzi. She was very elegant and beautiful and wore a luxurious dress. Mitzi told Pearl that next Saturday there would be a dance audition at the church and the chosen one would join the group and go on a tour of 7 different cities. Pearl, who liked to dance and wanted to be famous, was of course very interested in this information. They then promised to attend the audition, but Mitzi asked to keep it a secret because her mother would be angry.
It is before the year ends. Doesn't that sound exciting? Or have you been getting on? Any new letters?
Pearl then agreed and kept it a secret from everyone. Meanwhile, Mitzi's mother gave Pearl's mother a roast pork, but Pearl's mother refused because she felt humiliated. Mitzi's mother put the roast pork on the floor and left with Mitzi. In the evening, Pearl stole her mother's old dress.
Pen!
When it was dark, Pearl then went in secret to meet the projectionist. The projectionist welcomed her and took her to the projector room. There, he showed Pearl a film and gave advice about life.
There's a dance audition coming up at the church. I believe you get to see the pictures every day for free.
When Pearl was confiding, she had said that she wanted her parents to die. Of course, the projectionist was shocked and felt a bit strange. but Pearl quickly continued her story.
If only they would just die.
Well, then you ought to go overseas when this pandemic ends.
After that, Pearl returned home and found her mother crying alone in her room. The next day, Pearl took her father out. Pearl headed to the lake and called Theta. Theta appeared and approached slowly.
Theta!
Pearl talked to her father about her being fed up with her life there while pushing her father's wheelchair, but suddenly Pearl's mother arrived. She asked what Pearl was doing, and Pearl replied that she was just talking to her father. Her mother then lectured Pearl to stop pursuing her wishes.
Pearl, I only want what's best.
After that, her mother brought her father back to the house. Meanwhile, Pearl returned to behaving strangely. She wandered around the lake and found crocodile eggs. Pearl then stole the egg and took it to the livestock pens and kept it there. After a while, Pearl squeezed it with her hand. At night, the three of them gathered again for dinner. Her mother suddenly showed her a movie poster hidden by Pearl. Her mother always told Pearl to stop dreaming and live as her mother wanted. Because of that, when she found the poster, her mother became angry. Her mother then ordered Pearl to stay in the warehouse. Pearl immediately refused, but her mother insisted. At that time, Pearl was talking about the audition that would be held tomorrow. Pearl asked her mother to be given the opportunity to audition just once, but her mother instead said that she always saw what Pearl was doing quietly. Apparently she knew Pearl's true nature, and she said that people would be scared when they find out.
Come home and I'll never speak of it again, I swear.
Take your dinner. Stay in the bunkhouse. You think others won't notice?
They argued again, and her mother was even more angry and vented all her emotions. Apparently her mother was depressed because her life was spent taking care of her husband who was sick, taking care of the house, and taking care of the farm.
I was supposed to be his wife, not his for behavior. You are not.
When Pearl said that she did not want to be like her mother immediately got angry and slapped Pearl. Pearl was also angry and slapped her back. They then fought, and Pearl pushed her mother near the firebox until her mother's clothes caught fire and the fire quickly spread throughout her body. Pearl, who panicked, immediately took the boiled corn that was still on the stove and poured it on her mother. Luckily her mother was still alive, but her body was covered in wounded burns. Meanwhile, her father, who couldn't do anything, just looked at them sadly. After that, Pearl took her mother to the basement and left her there. Pearl immediately ran away from home and headed to the city. Pearl met the projectionist and stayed overnight at his place.
You forgot this last time.
In the morning, Pearl rushed home because she wanted to join the audition. The projectionist then drove her home with his car. Arriving at the house, Pearl immediately came in, and her house was still a mess like last night. Her father, who couldn't move, was still silent by the side of the dining table with a messy appearance. Pearl immediately took him to another room and gave him medicine recklessly. Outside, the projectionist waited and saw a roasted pig full of maggots at Pearl's doorstep. After that, the projectionist entered and Pearl introduced him to her father.
Whatever that is, we can't just ignore it.
Pearl and the projectionist were then alone in the room, but the projectionist heard the voice of Pearl's mother crawling in the basement. The projectionist was curious and went around the house. When he got to the kitchen, Pearl told him that their dog had messed up the kitchen, and Pearl locked it in the basement.
That's Charlie.
After that, Pearl brought the projectionist to the cattle barn. Pearl then introduced her animals, which she had named. When the projectionist asked the name of the dog, Pearl said that she didn't have a dog.
What's its name?
We don't have a dog.
From there, the projectionist, who felt strange, became increasingly convinced that something was wrong with Pearl. He said goodbye, but Pearl became hysterical because she didn't want to be left behind.
Why are you leaving me? If I didn't do anything wrong, I don't...
The projectionist said with honesty that Pearl had scared him. When the projectionist had started the car to leave, Pearl came and stabbed him to death with a pitchfork. After that, Pearl entered the house and checked her mother. Her mother was still alive and tried to crawl out, but Pearl instead threw her back into the basement. Pearl bathed her father and dressed him in a nice apparel. After she finished dressing herself, Pearl smothered her father to death. Then Pearl came to the church where the dance audition was held. There, Mitzi was waiting for her and they were queuing with the other participants. Mitzi told her that they only chose one girl per city, and Pearl immediately said that she had to win.
It has to be me.
When it was Mitzi's turn, she felt nervous and asked to switch places with Pearl, so Pearl went first. Pearl then danced freely. But the judges turned her down.
Yes, it was very nice. But it's gonna be a no.
One of the judges said that they were looking for dancers who had blonde hair and a more American feel. That criteria matched Mitzi, who was beautiful and blonde. Pearl was hysterical and cried beside the church. Not long after, Mitzi came and took her home. Arriving at Pearl's house, Mitzi was shocked to see the roast pork in front of the house that was getting rottener. After entering, Mitzi made drinks and talked with Pearl. Pearl said that she felt that something about her was different, but Mitzi remained optimistic and encouraged her.
Out of the house and ended up bringing home nothing but the germ?
The longer they talked, Mitzi felt that something was strange. Pearl kept talking and expressed her true feelings in front of Mitzi.
I hate you so much for leaving me. Here's such someone as handsome as you pine over me.
Mitzi started to believe that something was wrong with Pearl, and she became awkward. Mitzi kept her attitude to look normal and said that she had to go because her mother would be worried. Slowly Mitzi got up and walked outside, but before arriving outside, Pearl called her and asked if Mitzi was afraid of her. Mitzi turned around and smiled. She kindly said that she was not afraid. After Mitzi tried to leave again, Pearl said that she was happy because Mitzi was accepted into the dance group. Mitzi looked confused and then denied it, but Pearl insisted that Mitzi didn't have to cover it up. Mitzi, who seemed to be rejected, tried to convince Pearl, but in the end she gave up and allowed Pearl to speculate.
I really do love Howard. You're younger and more blonde.
Mitzi then thanked and left. When Mitzi was outside, Pearl also came out and took an axe. Mitzi then ran and screamed for help because Pearl chased her. The atmosphere of the farm was very quiet and no one was there. Mitzi, who tried to run, fell and Pearl hit her with an axe. Mitzi begged Pearl not to kill her, but Pearl instead hit her head sadistically. Pearl then mutilated Mitzi's body and threw it into Theta in the lake. Pearl also let her bloodied hands be licked by her pet goat. After that, Pearl entered the basement and met her dead mother. Pearl hugged her mother's body and took her out of the basement. She then combed her mother's hair, which had fallen out and was almost rotten. After that, Pearl brought the bodies of her mother and father to the dining table. In the middle of the dining table was a rotten roasted pork that Pearl took from the front of her house. She acted as if they were alive and ready to eat dinner.
Bless us, O Lord.
A few days later, Howard came home from the war and called out Pearl happily. As soon as he arrived in the kitchen, he was shocked to see the corpses of Pearl's parents sitting beside the dining table in a horrifying state. The food on the dining table was also rotten beyond measure. Shortly thereafter, Pearl came and said that she was happy to see Howard come home. Howard then looked at his wife with a horrified look.
I'm so